On this day, July 14, 1798, Congress passed the highly controversial Sedition Act, which made it a federal crime to publish false, scandalous, and malicious writings against the government or its officials. Why are we talking about this obscure law from 1798? Well, because its impact was far from obscure. In fact, the debate over the Sedition Act helped spark what Thomas Jefferson referred to as the Revolution of 1800, which ended the eight-tier Federalist era in American politics and resulted in the election of the first Democratic president himself. But let's not get ahead of things. After the passage of the Sedition Act, Northerners were quick to cry foul. The Democratic-Republican Party, which had largely formed around opposition to the Federalists, denounced the law as a tyrannical attack on the freedom of the press and a blatant attempt to silence critics of the government. To be fair, the Federalists did have some valid concerns. Since the beginning of the French Revolution, a wave of political refugees had fled to America, many of them with noble titles and vast estates. The most famous of these was the Marquis de Lafayette, who had been an aristocrat and military leader in France before fleeing to the United States. But while the U.S. was happy to grant asylum to these nobles, many Americans felt that they had also brought their revolution with them. And it was on long before the United States found itself caught in the middle of a war between France and Britain. In 1793, President George Washington declared American neutrality and attempted to stay out of the conflict. But when France began seizing American ships at sea, public opinion shifted dramatically and many began to call for war with France. In response, Washington and his cabinet drafted a series of laws known as the Alien and Sedition Acts, which were designed to suppress anti-war sentiment. The most controversial of these was the Sedition Act, which made it a federal crime to publish false, scandalous, and malicious writing against the government or its officials, though the law was clearly unconstitutional. Federalist leaders argued that it was necessary to preserve the Union during a time of war. But even as the Federalists used the Sedition Act to crack down on dissent, they were careful not to go too far. The act made it illegal to publish false, scandalous, and malicious writings. It did not restrict other forms of expression. And while many critics of the government were arrested under the Sedition Act, none were actually put to death. Still, the damage was done. The debate over the Sedition Act helped fuel the rise of the Democratic-Republican Party, which opposed the Federalist policies of the past 2 decades. In the election of 1800, the Democratic Republicans won, and Thomas Jefferson became the 3rd president of the United States. For more historical tales, stay tuned.